I will say this. Nash is a great talking point because you are a Brooklyn Nets season ticket holder. You sat 10 rows back mid-court. And during the offseason, Nash had told people he was close with, I want to go back to playing tennis. This is a mess. I feel actually I'm happy occasionally for a coach. I don't know what you do here. I heard practices were a circus. Forget games. What do you make of the parting of the ways?
Okay, so obviously he was in, and both these things can be true. Steve Nash was in an impossible position, and Steve Nash, in 2+ years as the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, has done a miserable job. Both of those things are true. I feel for him. Everyone likes him. He was an abysmal NBA head coach. For 2.5 years, they have been an awful defensive team, and they don't run an offense. The offense is simply, give the ball to Durant, let him do something. Give the ball to Kyrie, let him do something. And his playoff adjustments were simply, can Kevin Durant play all 48 minutes? Maybe, let's try it. So he was not doing a good job. He was also dealt an unwinnable hand. And the old next year Nets, I tried to warn everybody that the problem with the next year Nets is next year eventually becomes this year, and then the games are played. And you're right, Colin. I've been at every Nets home game until last night. Last night I was out trick-or-treating with my daughter. And they've been terrible.
Yeah.
And they play basketball like they wanted to get their coach fired, which Kevin Durant, did demand they fire the coach. But I don't think firing Nash, bringing in Jacques Vaughn, who wins 28% of his games as a head coach, is going to fix anything. I know, obviously, they're going to go after Ime Udoka.
Yeah.
That's the obvious move. But I don't think that fixes things either. This is a poorly constructed roster that Sean Marks deserves a lot of blame for. Kyrie Irving, on the court, is wildly overrated as he's just a one-way player and doesn't really get his teammates involved. And off the court is as much of a disaster as any player, as far as bringing on negative attention to the team, as any player currently in the league. And KD literally doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
So and they have Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. Everyone's like, the Nets, who got swept in round 1 last year. Oh, but they're different now that they have Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons worth 16 playoff wins? I don't think so. So, yeah, they're in trouble.
I want to do one more NBA topic here because some guys you can build. Giannis, LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Steph Curry. You can build around them. They're not only talented. They're stable. They're not flaky. They're smart. There are players that are really talented you can't build around. They're just different. And it's really interesting. Very few things in sports at this point in my career get me worked up. But the Clippers thought they could build around Kawhi, and they're finding out. He's nonverbal. He's sort of odd. You can't depend on him. He was great when you would put him in a great culture. Toronto, San Antonio. The Clippers mistakenly thought we're going to build a culture around him. It's like building around AD. You can't rely on him. Kawhi Leonard's not going on another road trip. I think you were one
Another road trip?
Yeah.
Did he suffer a new injury? This is listen, I empathize with guys dealing with, injuries. But did Kawhi Leonard tear his ACL or have his leg amputated? Because if he just tore his ACL, I think he should be back by now. Right. I don't totally follow, nor do I understand what the management plan is. And so there's 2 points here, Colin. One is, I think if you're saying, hey, a fantasy draft, but for teams, guys you can have for the rest of this season, I think there are 30 names you would say before Kawhi Leonard because you simply cannot count on him being there. That's the first point. The second point is this. Kawhi Leonard has always been on this incredibly, call it, conservative load management plan.
Right.
And it clearly, I think we have a dozen years of evidence now, or 10 years, has not served him right. Like, he never has, Broussard talks about this all the time, dating back to San Antonio. If he was dinged up a little bit, he didn't want to play through it. And clearly, it has not led to the best long-term health he could have. Even his year in Toronto, when he was on that incredibly conservative load management plan, he peaked in round 2 against the Sixers and then was literally and figuratively limping in the finals against the Warriors that they won after all the Warriors' injuries. Like, I don't know that Kawhi has handled this the way he should have, not only because it's bad for the league to have stars sitting out this much, but because I think maybe, the metaphorical build up some calluses he never has. And now, he's out 16, 17, 18 months with an injury some guys are out 9 months with. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah.
Listen, Kyrie mentally, you can't build around him. AD, Kawhi, physically, you can't build around him. People confuse. There's about 7 guys in the league. I'm like, I am building around them. There's 30 guys I love. And I think he falls into that first, that category of talented. I'll never lean on him again. I think the Clippers are finding out. You don't know if he's playing. Now football. It is interesting. I watched Justin Fields. You like Chicago. I like Chicago. I love what the Bears did. They gave up a star because they're saying, listen, we've been defense for 50 years. We have 1 Super Bowl and 40 bad years. We need draft picks. Can Justin Fields play? And I think so far there's evidence 60-40 Justin Fields can play. So I love the trade, even though half the draft picks could be whiffs. What did you make of giving up your best player? How does it land for you?
So, Colin, I got something to tell you. This is really going to be a test of our relationship. So the moment you started asking me that question, I lost all audio.
Okay.
And I was trying to read your lips, and then they took a wider shot, and I couldn't read your lips anymore. But I see the bottom line, so I'm on the Bears and Roquan Smith and the Saints. So I'm going to try to talk about that and see if they get the audio back. So do I think this is a good idea for the Baltimore Ravens? The answer is yes, and I do think I want to give credit. I think our mutual friend Peter Schrager made the point that the Ravens are more concerned about games played in February than the negotiating table in March. And what he's talking about is the Ravens need their franchise tag available for Lamar Jackson.
Right.
So Roquan Smith might be there as a purely short-term rental. And if he is it worth it? But the idea that you are in Baltimore saying, we have Lamar, he is still relatively, or actually not even just relatively, incredibly cheap. Every year we have him in his prime and he's healthy, we should be trying to win.
That's right.
I applaud that. Now, I got your audio back. I just heard you agree with me.
Yeah.
And so I think you can go too far with that.
Right.
I think the Los Angeles Rams potentially have, taken that philosophy too far. I saw Albert Breer reported they offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. That's crazy to me because they are not a Super Bowl caliber team this year, not with that offense, not with that offensive line. But if you have Lamar Jackson, just like if you have Patrick Mahomes, you should be trying to win every single year. Now, that doesn't mean you always make the win now trade, but if they rated Roquan Smith as a top 15 player in that draft, and they now can get him for a 2nd and a 5th, and if he walks, they get a compensatory pick, probably a 4th for him. It makes a lot of sense. I think the Ravens are a smart organization, and they're one of the very few scary teams for me in the AFC.
And by the way, what my question was, even though I loved your answer, I like what Chicago did, because for 50 years, all I've heard is, oh, you can't hear again? You can't hear again.
Well, and I can read your lips, though, Colin. I've known you for so long. You're right, I can't hear you, but I can do whatever you want here. I feel badly. Colin, I'm going to tell America this, and they're probably going to have to end this because I can't hear the host. But Colin was like, Nick, you've been doing Wednesdays for years. We're going to move you to Tuesdays, top of the hour. They did some, audience research. They're like, this is when America wants Nick Wright. I think the real answer is somebody else canceled. They're like, throw Nick in there. Doesn't matter. But this is a big debut, new audience for me, and we're having all these technical difficulties. I feel terribly about it, but, it is what it is. I personally blame Healy.
Yeah.
But the audience doesn't know who he is, but I think he's accountable.
All right. Nick Wright, first things first. Great seeing you, buddy. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.